Hi, my name's Danielle, and I am here to do a short video introduction to nonviolent communication. Nonviolent communication is based on a philosophy or framework that all our feelings are based on our needs. So, positive feelings come from when our needs are met. For instance, if my need for connection is met and I have a really great hour-long telephone conversation with a friend, then I'll be left feeling happy because that need was met, and that's awesome. Versus if, say, my need for respect is not being met, a more unpleasant feeling such as anger or sadness might come up. This paradigm really changes the way we communicate. So instead of, for instance, me saying something like, oh, it's really rude that you're late to someone, it would shift to something more like, hey, when my need for reliability from my coworkers and friends isn't met, I get a little upset. Nonviolent communication has a general framework, which is that you start with an observation, you go into your feelings, you name the need behind the feelings, and then you end with a request. It's pretty simple, though there are a lot of pieces to it. For instance, the observation should be very, very objective. We want to keep out as much evaluation judgment as possible. So, for instance, like, she talks too much, has some evaluation in it because the right amount for another person to speak varies person to person. What I might consider too much talking might be considered by someone else to be not enough sharing, this, that, or the other. Or, for instance, saying something like, oh, she never cleans up her dishes is probably not totally objective, because never and always are words to look out for, because they're generally not totally true. With feelings, for me, feelings is one of the hardest ones, just because it's not something I've been great at. What I've learned is that when it comes to feelings, in terms of expressing them, simpler is better. My instinct is I'll come up with a list of like 5 feelings that like totally fit to try to get the most perfect, accurate description, and that's not what matters as much. So I try to stick to like at most 2 feelings, mixing them together from like the basic 5 or 6, which are like happiness, sadness, guilt, fear, surprise, and anger. Additionally, one of the most helpful things for me when it comes to feeling is anything that says something about the other person is not a feeling. So like, I feel intimidated, or I feel accused, or I feel appreciated. Those are not feelings, because they're implying something about the other person, that they are behaving in an intimidating way, or that they accused me, or that they appreciated me. So, for instance, instead of saying intimidated, it might say angry and afraid, or accused might say just angry, probably. And appreciated would probably, it feels happy, it feels really good. Needs are kind of a new thing for a lot of people. It definitely takes some getting used to. But I think that it's pretty intuitive once you kind of like get used to the vocabulary, and a lot of times in NVC classes they give you a nice long inventory with a long list of different needs, so you can begin to get used to them, whether that need is for touch or affection or respect or dependability, or support. That's a big one for me. Or being seen, or mattering, like the need to matter to the people around you or to yourself. It's also really helpful because I'm sure I'm not the only person who gets really self-conscious about possibly seeming too needy, and kind of getting familiar with your needs and a needs inventory can help you kind of take that pressure off of yourself. The last piece of the typical nonviolent communication framework is the request, which can be very challenging on its own, because first you have to be able to admit to yourself that, in my case at least, like what I think might be an obvious correct thing to do, which might sound something like stop being disrespectful, is actually not a request at all, because it doesn't really mean anything. NVC really emphasizes coming up with something that is actionable. It's not, you're not asking someone to not do something, you're asking them to do something. So instead of like, can you please not be disrespectful? We want a positive action, such as, if I am speaking, can you please listen until I finish my sentence before you speak? And that, while it is an example of a positive action, is not actually a great example of an NVC request, because it is kind of generically like anytime I'm speaking, versus we want something that there's a time frame. So yeah, in NVC we try to keep it direct, simple, positive action, and immediate, or with a very specific time frame. So for instance, if my request is to someone that I want them to pay more attention to me, a generic bad request might be, hey, please stop ignoring me, or please show me that I matter. Whereas a better request might be, hey, can you find some time this week? I'd really like to spend an hour or two talking to you and catching up, and can you check your calendar and maybe let me know by the end of the day if and when you would be available to do that. So yeah, that's the basic nonviolent communication framework: observation, feelings, needs, request. Knowing feelings and needs can be really challenging. I took my first NVC class over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and I still struggle with that. So a lot of NVC work is about self-empathizing and learning to understand yourself better and learning to take care of yourself better, which is something I think that everyone can use, and I'm certainly very grateful for that. All around, I think nonviolent communication is really transformative and really wonderful. It's helped me grow a lot, and I strongly encourage anyone to check it out. Ask me any questions you might have. Check for classes in your area. The community is really about spreading the teachings. So if you're super poor and you find a class and it seems expensive, email the teacher. I've always had scholarships to all of my classes offered by the teachers, which is wonderful. And Marshall Rosenberg, who developed nonviolent communication, has many wonderful books, including the main one, which is just called Nonviolent Communication, which is a quick, great read, great introduction. So thank you for watching, and check it out.